Please join us for a short video about the Greater Buffalo Racial Equity Roundtable, followed by a conversation between Clotilde Perez-Bode Dedecker and Pedro Ramos.
I'll never forget it. I see the street, I see the bus station, and I read these words, "Coloreds to the back." And my mother snatches my hand, spins me around, and she said, "Don't read it." But I kept asking her, what did that mean? And eventually she had to explain that to me. It broke my heart.
I always wanted to sit on the front seat and watch the bus driver drive. And every time I got on the bus, I would plop myself down right on the front seat. That would drive my mother crazy because she was always headed to the back of the bus.
And we're stopped at a stoplight. So I asked us, why are we rolling up our windows? It's the summer and it's hot. And she goes, well, you know, we got to be careful because there's black people in this neighborhood and we don't want them coming in and trying to rob us. You know, so that was my first real, like, in your face, like, wow.
Everything was segregated. We had the black beach, which was Bayshore, and the white beach, which was Buckrow. Now, I worked at the white beach, but I could not attend.
I grew up in a neighborhood that was 99.9% African American.
I grew up on the east side of Buffalo, Broadway-Fillmore area. When I was 14 and a half, I went to work in a restaurant working with 3 people of color. These people kind of took me under their wings, adopted me, and proceeded to really watch out for me when I was at work. That was the first time I really had the experience of understanding that the issue of race, creed, or color was not as significant as I had grown up believing.
I learned very early on that we didn't consider ourselves white. We were actually taught to be afraid of whites. My accent was very heavy, Mexican accent. I remember sitting in front of a mirror at home practicing words just so that I wouldn't be made fun of.
I was a teenager when my parents bought a house in the Fruit Belt. It was not too long after the Kensington Expressway was put in, where people's houses were being devalued because of the expressway.
My father is a veteran. He was not offered a FHA loan to move to Cheektowaga or Amherst or anywhere else, but he was offered an FHA loan to move on Emsley Street. White people lived between Smith and Fillmore, and black people lived between Smith and Emsley. There was a big line painted in the street. And on one side of the line it said Africa, and on the other side of the line it said United States of America.
I was one of the first that was bussed out in the 4th grade and going into an all-white neighborhood. Well, I came home and told my mother, I said, you know what? I'm the only black girl in the classroom.
I actually grew up in the Mississippi, in the South. So I grew up in an era of Jim Crow and racial segregation. So my grandmother, who was a committed Christian, was horrified by this, and she started organizing meals of African Americans and white people. And I had this image of people singing together, black hands and white hands being held together. And this, as just a little boy, this made a deep impact on me.
I didn't have any lawyers and doctors in my family to look up to say, I want to be like them. In fact, I remember when I was little, even telling my grandmother, saying, I think when I grow up, I want to be a lawyer. And she patted me on my head and said, you know, that's cute. But it wasn't something that was attainable.
I'm 36 now, just turned 36. I can tell you, when I turned 21, I cried. When I turned 25, I cried. When I turned 30, it was a big, I didn't cry then, but it was a big moment because coming up from where I was, the odds are against me, you know? The odds are against a lot of young black men.
Racial Equity Roundtable is a group of people of various backgrounds that can touch a large number of people.
We've all come together with one common goal in mind.
These people around the table look at each other in the eyes and say, we're here, we're committed, we promise, we must.
And there was such a compelling case revealed in the data. It said that we don't have any other choice but to correct this, and the time is now.
Here we have all this renaissance, resurgence, new buildings, new things going on, but yet we have in the city of Buffalo 40,000 African Americans living in poverty.
We are leaving talent on the table if we don't bring everybody in to Buffalo's renaissance.
We don't just want to see new buildings. We want to see neighborhoods that are coming around them and being successful for all people.
There's nothing I'd like to see more than us using this platform of success that we've experienced the last 5 years and really use that as a springboard to embrace diversity and embrace economic opportunity for all people in Buffalo.
The Say Yes initiative really demonstrated to me that we can do this.
Racial equity is the opportunity to pursue dreams, aspirations, talents, unaffected by your racial composition.
We all want the same thing. It doesn't matter where you're from. We all want to be healthy. We want to be happy. We want to be prosperous.
We talk about one Buffalo. Let's see if we really are, right? Let's make this one community for everybody.
I think that this is the most important thing that Buffalo has to do.
We need to decide, do we want to be a community known for high concentration of poverty or prosperity that's shared by everyone, everywhere?
Racial equity is the way of the future. It is the key to unlocking the full potential of this community.
We can do it here in Buffalo. We can become a national and international model, transform lives in this community, and through the work that we're doing here, transform lives across the country.
Join the conversation. Join the action.
Join us.
Join us.
Come join us.
Join us.
Please welcome Clotilde Perez-Bode Dedecker, Community Foundation for Greater Buffalo President and CEO, and Pedro Ramos, Philadelphia Foundation President and CEO.
Clotilde, it's terrific having you here at the Ideas We Should Steal Festival in Philadelphia.
I love the title of the festival. It's wonderful. So good to see you, Pedro.
Well, Clotilde, I know you're president and CEO of the Community Foundation for Greater Buffalo. You're sort of our counterpart in the Community Foundation world in that region. And I understand you've been at the foundation for about 15 years, leading it. Well, we just saw that terrific video, sort of these first-person lived experiences and perspectives, from segregated busing to FHA subsidized redlining, to entrenched forms of segregation and educational issues and more. How did the idea of that video come about? What was the context for it?
Well, when we went to launch the Greater Buffalo Racial Equity Roundtable, we felt it was important to raise every voice on the roundtable. And it was, very full days of taping interviews and of being moved truly by the inspirational and personal testimonies that civic leaders across the sectors in our community offered. The strength of this effort, Pedro, is the people involved, right? The leaders and the partners in our community who are committed to doing this work and moving it forward. This work is head, hands, and heart work. And we felt that the video really would get to that personal connection. And as you saw, the video ends with this beautiful local musician's rendition on the trumpet, which we thought added a really important storytelling element that would help us create the space to pause and reflect on the very powerful words that were shared by the individuals who were gracious enough to open up their lived experience on this tape. So we wanted folks to feel the invitation to come join us in doing this work.
And then tell us about how people responded to that invitation, and the Greater Buffalo Racial Equity Roundtable. How did that? How did you organize that? How did it come together? You've told us a little bit about the what, but give us a little bit more about the who, what, sort of the when and why.
So in 2006. Our board members named increasing racial ethnic equity in our community as a priority for the organization. Why? We're the third poorest large city in the country, the sixth most segregated city in the country. And when you looked at any and all data indicators, it became really clear that we needed to address racial equity as a priority in order to be able to address these challenges in meaningful ways. And in 2015, which was the early days of an economic resurgence here in Western New York, it became crystal clear that in order for us to continue to accelerate our economic resurgence, we needed to include everyone in the economy if we wanted to continue to progress towards a healthier region. And it is turned out to be pretty spectacular in terms of the number of partners, over 250 partners at this point, that have come to join this work because they also believe that inclusion is the superior growth model for our region.
And was it in 16 you published a report, or do I have?
Yes. In 2016, we published the dividend report, Buffalo's Great Opportunity. So there are three guiding principles to the work of the Roundtable. Number one, rooted in data. This work can get pretty emotional pretty quickly, and it can get caught up in anecdote and hunches. So we thought we would just simply root it in local data, right? Making the economic case for why this work is critically important in order for us to reach our collective aspirations for the Greater Buffalo region. The second guiding principle is that it would be focused on systems change. And the third one is that we would work to call people into the work versus calling people out. So those are three very important guiding principles that have guided this work since 2015. And this report explains the full scope of this opportunity and the power of an expanded, more inclusive economy. It actually quantifies the impact, economic impact, of closing opportunity gaps, what we're calling racial equity opportunity gaps, across 16 indicators, so that it becomes really clear that we will have car dealers selling more cars. We will have realtors selling more homes. We will have retailers selling more product. Our municipalities will enjoy an expanded tax base to be able to improve libraries and roads, so that the proposition became amply clear and rooted in local data. That's been the purpose of this dividend report, named, appropriately after the opportunity of the great dividend we would all reap if we build an expanded, more inclusive economy.
And I thought, from the get-go, the title and the framing of the shared opportunity of Greater Buffalo at a pivotal time in its sort of transformation was very powerful. And as you said, you sort of not only make the case and say what if, but you really quantify the what if. As when you looked at that data, what that dividend could be and what the benefit could be, when you look at it across sort of Anglos and people of color and the diverse community in Buffalo, were there shared ahas? I know that there were lots of ahas in there. What do you think were some of the bigger shared ahas in the community as people went through that exercise?
Well, it really, the ahas continue. because as you begin to do this work, you begin to see the opportunity, you begin to see the potential, you begin to feel that promise and that potential coming into focus as you move towards it. So the data was very instrumental in helping people understand this opportunity for growth. So for example, if we close the workforce indicator gaps, we would add an estimated 19,000 new jobs and 3,500 new businesses. That doesn't need a lot of explanation. That's a good thing. People understand those numbers and can quickly grasp the benefit of that type of work. So the business leaders in particular have been very, very powerful partners in getting this work done because they see the benefit of this expanded inclusive economy. And they were invited to join us and to help us shape an agenda for building this expanded inclusive economy. And just this year, for example, just in the last 12 months, we've had over 240 businesses actively engaged in building their capacity and moving policies and practices and procedures within their organizations. And we do have a focus on major employers, though not exclusively, but clearly more people will benefit so that they can build more inclusive workplaces. Think about where we spend most of our day on any given day during the week at our workplaces. So if we can build momentum around building more inclusive workplaces that embrace the work of diversity, equity, and inclusion, by extension, we will build a more equitable community. So business leaders have been core and key to the progress that we've been able to make through the Racial Equity Roundtable. This work has two dimensions, right? It's building the conditions, creating the conditions for change, and focusing on systems change on key priority systems. Every system in our community needs attention on this front. Every system in our community can benefit from these types of effort to build more equitable systems and to ensure that the policies and practices of these systems are indeed aligned and centering race equity. But you can't do it all at once.
Talk about doing this work as a Latina, and how you've thought about your work as a Latina doing racial equity work in a diverse community, and how that sort of has informed your work and otherwise affected it.
Yeah, well, so lived experience is central to any kind of a change effort. So not only my lived experience, but the lived experience of individuals and neighbors who have been part of these various systems that we seek to change has been invaluable to understanding the shortcomings and the barriers that exist in these systems, and then to changing. I mean, the good news around systems change is that we've built these systems, so we can take them down and rebuild them, right? So that's an empowering bit of information. These systems did not just come to be without a lot of intentionality. So the folks that are working in these systems now, once you realize how redlining impacted the quality of life in neighborhoods in our community, you also can understand how you can change the policies to reverse those decades and centuries of damage that our communities have experienced. So lived experience has to be centered to be able to get at the priorities that you want to address in each system. You know, I've used the word priority a couple of times, and centering race and lived experience. You can't do everything at once, so you need to identify which systems do we feel will unlock the greatest potential, right? Which of them are pregnant with opportunity and presenting the biggest barriers to progress around building an expanded inclusive economy? Which systems are keeping people back? Then you bring all the stakeholders together to come up with shared goals, right? That co-creation of shared goals for that system. What will that system look like? What will be the outcomes of that system, the new outcomes for that system that we can all work towards? And then you work backwards from there to develop action plans to achieve the 2 or 3 or 4 strategies which will best accelerate towards that shared goal that you have co-created with your fellow stakeholders.
Well, Clotilde, you certainly helped us start thinking about the many ways we can steal from Greater Buffalo and your fantastic work here. I want to thank you very much for joining us for this special program. And
my pleasure. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to have a chat with you and wish you all the best in this conference. I love the concept.
Thank you.
All righty.
A special thank you to our sponsors.